I've asked you here to help provide some input on an email that I'm thinking of drafting about some upcoming health insurance changes. As you know, our costs continue to increase. The premiums from last year to this year increased by 20%. I mean, there's some way we have to contain those costs. So we had no choice but to make some changes. In fact, we've been working in a task force for the last 6 months where we're interviewing different providers, trying to negotiate different plans, that type of thing. And we have come up with a new plan. So what we've come up with is we are changing providers, and we are asking employees to come up with a higher percentage to pay a higher percentage of the premium. That's the second thing. And a third thing is we're increasing the co-pays that employees have to pay. So my thinking is that I get this in an email, I draft an email, because we know people don't want to be overloaded with a lot of information. I just keep it nice and short and to the point, and I'd give them the details about those three things, namely a little bit about the new provider, the cost, the increased costs that they're going to have to come up with, mainly in the co-pays and the premiums, and the effective date. And my thinking is that I'd love to get this out by Friday.
Wow, these are some fairly major changes.
You know, but it's not like it's any big surprise to anybody, though.
But I mean, this is a sharp reversal to how the company has formerly dealt with these issues. And we've always stressed how we take care of our people. Don't you think we need to consider how people are going to respond to this?
You know, I think it's just a fact of organizational life today. Nobody expects their company to handhold them any longer.
But I think we might want to put ourselves in the place of our employees. You said you've been working on this for a month, and I agree. I mean, look how complex this whole process is. Think of how long it took your group to understand these issues, how to weigh the pros and cons, this versus that. You know, I just don't think that one email can explain everything so that they understand, let alone accept the changes.
Yeah, don't you think we should talk about the trend of increasing healthcare costs? Maybe diagram it some way. That way we'll be allowed a visual representation about how the bottom line of the company is going to be affected. I think that'll help create an understanding of why the company felt the need to make this change.
You know, but everybody knows this, though. I mean, plus people don't want to be overloaded with a lot of unnecessary information.
But it would seem to me that by building this need, people would understand or be more likely to understand why we needed to make these changes.
Well, and another thing to consider is, are people going to react the same way? Is a family with children going to react the same way as a single employee? Also, some people are going to have to switch their doctors, and I think that can be very traumatic for someone who has a long-standing relationship with their doctor.
Well, some people might have to, but you know what? They'll work through it. I mean, I didn't imagine you guys would be so tough on me about this.
And what about the family? I would think that the spouse would be a critical part in this process. We'd want to make sure that we'd provide them some information also.
It just doesn't seem like a one-time email is going to do the trick. I mean, this is a major change. We're going to need several communications just to explain the changes, let alone allow employees to ask questions.
Well, it seems like we're making this a little more complicated than it needs to be.
It depends on what you want to do. Do you just want to download the information, dumping the details, or do you want to create acceptance and long-term buy-in?
Exactly. If we just dump the information in an email, how are we going to know how employees are responding? And they're bound to have concerns and objections, so who's going to deal with those? If we don't, believe me, their family, their friends, people outside of work are going to help them make sense of this. And it's most likely not going to be in a way that is true of the organization.
I agree. I think we might also want to consider when we are providing them this information.
Well, that's why I thought Friday afternoon would be ideal, you know, because then we wouldn't have to deal with any of the concerns for the next couple days, and by the time Monday rolls around, maybe things will have subsided a bit.
Wow, can you imagine how the grapevine will run wild over the weekend? Information will be distorted and manipulated.
Okay, you've convinced me, I do think I need to rethink this. You've brought up some great points. Can you help me out? Maybe tomorrow afternoon we can meet. You can help me come up with a communication plan where we address these points that you've brought up. Would 3 o'clock, does 3 o'clock work for you guys?
Sure.
That sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay.